Hey, Michelle, what are we doing today?
Hey, Maddie. So, we know students are always looking for ways to stand out in college admissions. So, what we're going to talk about today is something that's kind of a trend in the college admissions world, and it's called passion projects.
Yeah.
So, in fact, there was an article in Forbes where they were talking about, different ways that students can stand out, and passion projects is one of them. So, we're going to talk about what exactly they are these like the new secret to getting into elite colleges?
It's more than a trend, it's an obsession, especially online. So we'll talk all about them. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my definition of passion project and then you tell me like what yours is. So I kind of think of it as something a student takes on outside of their schoolwork and it's driven kind of like some kind of personal interest they have. And it could be like a blog or maybe like research or maybe like a community service initiative. And it's something that they do like over the summer or maybe it's something that can span over like multiple years. Is that like what's your definition?
So there's two ways that the idea of a passion project can kind of come to my mind. The first is the most common, which is I am meeting a student who's now applying to schools as a senior or upcoming senior or their late junior, and I'm looking at their my cat knocked my camera. Then if you're into passion project, this is my passion project. This is,
Right.
and in those cases, I do not see them as a passion project. I either see them as something they did of varying quality or value, or I see it as something very impressive on their application. I do not go like, "Oh, is this a passion project of yours?" I go,
Mhm.
"Oh, cool. You worked with Vietnam veterans. Like you like helped. Oh, that's neat. You know." However, I guess the cause and effect of it, the mindset of why they did that, it's not really how I see it. They have their application, they've done work they've done, and the reality is passion projects, not like you're calling them that on the application, so they just come out that way. The other is when I'm helping a younger student actually build something, and
Mhm.
in those, I almost end up passion projects are seen as this great, like this great, just hack or secret to college admissions, I guess.
Right.
And I guess they kind of are because they are effective, like when done correctly. However, they seem like just a title for, like, having a good application, like doing stuff that gets you into college.
Okay.
Whereas when I'm working with students, I end up usually joking calling them additional information projects. I guess that's actually what I call them because that's what they end up being, is it's a project that kind of encompasses multiple aspects of your application that you've already been working on, building a spike, building a theme kind of thing. You bring
Mhm.
those together or really build upwards with whatever your most passionate subject matter is to do something neat and original. It's called a different information project because it's usually kind of complicated. It involves a lot of different stuff you're having to do, which you then have to better explain in your additional information because there's no good way to actually address a passion project in an application. It's
That's
probably
true
the
with
yeah,
150 characters.
yeah, the irony I'm stepping upon here is like your reward for completing your passion project is you then fill out a common app that has no dedicated space for projects.
Very true.
So it's weird that they have become this meme or this like this golden ticket into college admissions because well, when you actually are applying to college, your passion project, it's not like you get to label it. There's no big term for it. It's just it's your application, stuff you have done.
Yeah.
So I think talking more about it, we can kind of realize that I'm not saying they're bad. But it's silly that like this is the secret currently, I
Right,
think, more
right.
than
There's no,
anything.
like, drop down on the common app where you pick, like, passion project.
Yeah, maybe there should be, but yeah, that maybe that's
Right.
that's my first big take is that the irony is that there is no passion project segment of the Common App. So like I don't
Yeah.
know, you end up stuffing it in next to like, please note that I left the country for a year and was in Switzerland. Like that's why my grades are, like that's where it goes it's in the same box. So
When did you, like, see this trend or, like you said, obsession? Like, where did it start happening?
yeah, so this has evolved. So God, so I'm trying to think of like because I've been terminally online in the college consulting space for since I've been basically in the field since 2019, and my first memory of passion projects was it didn't it was there were like it wasn't the people I liked. That's the thing is I learned a lot about this industry by basically watching YouTube videos, mostly YouTube videos. Super Tutor, if you want to know, was
Mm.
very helpful for me figuring it out. I'm a college essay guy. I more agree
Mhm.
with the Super Tutor kind of. That's the idea. Like I learned from people online. Now hopefully some other consultants like I'm gonna steal all this guy's ideas because like go for it, bro. Like hope you can
Right.
handle them. But there were other influencers I don't really wanna, like, mention because I don't remember their names, and, like, they're generally, like, the grosser ones, I think. Like, there's one woman in particular that, like, that was her deal, like, passion project, is
Okay.
and I can't remember her name, but, like, I know who I'm talking about. I remember her name, I'm not gonna use it. And that was like it was like part of her brand, I guess, more than anything. It was like passion project,
Oh, so
whatever.
she kinda coined the term or
Yeah, well,
okay,
as far as I knew, and then I would watch her videos,
interesting.
and she would break down a passion project, like what it really meant. And I never really bought her stuff, like I do for all these other consultants, just the other ideas. And yeah, I'm watching. I'm like, oh yeah, like you probably should have like a summer project where you put your ideas together. Like that seems logical.
Mhm.
And it was a similar take now, where it was, yeah, you should have stuff on your application that is a bit different and unique, and builds upon the type of work you've already done. Like totally, but that was different than this is the big secret, kids. Like, here's how you get into college.
Right.
Yeah, so like that was the big part of it. Then what I really noticed was it was a lot of like honestly a lot of crappy upstart, like I call them in college consultants, like TikTokers that are a bunch of college sophomores that are like, let's make some money getting like running this same scheme that we paid a bunch of money for when we were in high school. They were on TikTok being like, secret to college admissions is a passion project. We'll show you how. But then there was no other information. It was just like that over and over and over
Oh, yeah,
again. Is
yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna
really
ask you
remember.
questions about, like, this
Oh
whole
yeah, that's what I
industry
really
coming up.
remember was that like I've already broken down what I see a passion project as an actual consultant, but these people, just like the idea, like it was this big secret about what it
Yes.
could be. That was hot. Like that was like 4 or 5 years ago, and those still exist, however. But what is now, we're in a world where other consultants of varying quality, some I do very much respect, are also using passion project as like the big buzz term.
Mhm.
And I guess bring it down that way, I think it's a marketable, easy to digest way to explain how to get into college that I mostly agree with. It's just it's a buzz term that kind of has like, yeah, it's branding, I guess. It's branding
Mhm.
on I would say pretty straightforward, rational college consulting advice. So, that's why I don't hate passion projects. Like my takeaway is not that they're wrong or it's a silly idea. It's and I'm sure we'll get to like what they even look like. It's But that's why I find it bizarre. Is like, yeah, is I guess it's branding. Like that's what I think the idea of a
Okay.
passion project is. It's a way for a consultant on social media to package that they're just gonna like help you like get an internship or something, or build something that, but
Mhm.
with like a bunch of flair to it. And quite honestly, I don't tend to traffic in, like by the time I work with most students, they've already completed their theoretical passion project. Like we're getting students in via the actual application work and like a lot of the in school stuff. And maybe that's why I'm less obsessed with the idea, because I'm marketing by talking about how to do the UCPIQ essays next week, like not how to
Right,
do that.
right.
And that's not fair. I have silly names for all sorts of stuff. Like I'm a brand guy. Like, so I cannot in good faith be like, how dare they be marketing stuff when they don't need to? Like, look at, so I'm in a goddamn banana shirt right now. Um, yeah, so like that is the path, I suppose. And that is of course spread down to, I think, your average hardworking but anxious high schooler is like, okay, I need a passion project. That's
Yeah.
how we get into
Everyone's
school
heard
now.
about it now.
Yeah, that's the other side of all this. And I guess the good news is, deep, like my overall take is, passion projects are good. Like they're a good
Mhm.
idea, but what they actually are is not that magical. They're not. It's not a golden ticket. It's not.
Right.
And if you don't have one, I guarantee you, I've had many students have gotten into great schools, the best in the country, that never had a dedicated passion project, that I didn't even think about. I was like, they just did what they did. Like they have their work. So we can keep moving and probably better describe what like it even is to me, because I don't really, yeah, like I don't see it that way. It's like your application is your application. It's like
Was there
it's like
anything that, like, accelerated the trend? Like, do you think the pandemic accelerated it or becoming, schools going test optional or
It's somewhere between that I'm sure in 10 years, 5, 10 years, we'll be knowing about, talking about some other like hot in the streets. I that's the thing I forget about them. They're memes, they're
Mhm.
trends in college admissions, and maybe I need to go deep in the archives, and because this, like, I a lot of them are just fall by the wayside. Can you think of any other ones? Like, you weren't around as long as me, but I go watch old Calf Path videos and like figure out what she was talking about. And the fact that no one knows who Calf Path is anymore is like example of how this, I don't want this to just turn into like a marketing and like online consulting discussion, because like that's kind of how I feel about it. Is the nature of this industry is that it's an online job that markets to teenagers. And
Mhm.
because of that, like things like this podcast or the social media posts we'll make, like that is how you market to young people, and having a catchy brand term is going to be the best way to do so. I think we're just currently caught in, not an explosion necessarily, but like a steady, slow but steady increase in number of people who realize that being an online consultant is a very good business model, because there's a lot of students
Oh.
who it's just like, it worked for me.
Yeah.
And this being an idea that students seem to glom onto, maybe because it makes enough sense to them and is a way to package, I guess a fairly complicated number of ideals, and maybe that's why I don't like the idea of is like you can't just like make a passion project, and like you kind of can, but like the idea of how you actually get there is much more kind of boring traditional college consulting stuff, which is what I basically building up, like having core values, having like knowing what major you're going to apply to, and then using that information to go in on like a larger project that you can then write about or have in your application.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years from now, yeah, I'm sure what after this I'm gonna think about like at some point I'll remember other memes and college admissions, and I will let you know because I have to go back and think because they get lost to time, you know. It's like and
That's true.
it's
And okay, so thinking about it like from the college's point of view, I mean, it's not like they ask for it on their application for a passion project. So like I mean, what kind of happened with that when colleges started seeing like these projects pop up in the applications?
So what is a passion project? I think I keep saying I'll talk about it later. And I think I have a student and I'm like, how do I inevitably end up saying like I guess this is with a passion project is
Yeah.
that I believe the best way into college is to be spiky, I guess. And we did a few episodes about that.
Mhm.
And generally being spiky means I will get a student who's a ninth grader or a 10th grader or an eighth grader. And I will ask them, it's like, what major do you want to apply to college with? And they usually have a better answer than not, you know? Like, they'll say, like, computer science or math, or I'll talk to them, it's like, "Okay, well, of these, like, this one makes sense." Then it is on them. I like students to build up, not wide necessarily, when it comes to, building applications, and this is basically it's like, okay, you're applying math. I want you doing a lot of math stuff. And that's often where they ask, like, well, what kind of math stuff? And I'm like, I'm not really sure, which is why they then like they have to figure it out kind of thing. But like what kind of math you into about finding a niche. They then once they have and like I want them doing math clubs and doing math competitions and stuff like that and building up.
Yeah.
And generally with I guess with fan projects, it's usually it's within that work itself they will discover more opportunities for what they can be doing with math. They will meet a certain mathematician or a professor there, or they will find themselves in some math group they didn't even know existed. Like that's what I'm
Mhm.
really looking for. I'm constantly encouraging them to follow threads where they may lead. To when they like when people offer things, always be going and trying that because
Okay.
that leads to them in like eventually kind of in a far off part of the situation where they are in a more niche down kind of unique form of whatever subject matter, so it's math, and it's around that point that's like okay, well that's where we want to use with like how can we use this to make something new, and I think that like the one thing I agree with a passion project is probably the number one trick that students can do is to use the information they have, specifically high level academic information that they may not necessarily like be able to learn in high school, to go and make and build something unique, like to make something instead of joining. And that is, I think, at the root of what a passion project is. So if you were looking at that math, actually using that math. I don't know. That's why it's hard for me to come up. I don't know enough about math. So let's go back to English. I was still am, but I was a writer and I want to be an English major. My passion project, my personal one, is I wrote for a internet website called crack.com. I created
Okay.
a original comedic information. You can find it. So Mattie Culkin. The website's like a dirt pile now. You can still find my work. And I figured out their whole application system and I wrote original pieces for them and got published and they got like millions of views.
Ah,
I did not
okay.
know it was a passion project at the time. But
Right.
I did know
You're
that it
always a
was something.
pioneer.
Bro, like, game's the game. But at the time, my memory was that I wanted to do it for personal reasons because it seemed neat and
Mhm.
that I wanted to see if I could. And yeah, on the back end, I'm 95% certain I was like, definitely by the time I was like, oh, this will look good on my college application. I should put it there. Although I'm sure I had to like ask my mom. She's like, yeah, you probably should. Like, I didn't really know. But it wasn't really for college, I guess. Maybe that's the disconnect is I think when they're done authentically and done well, it's hard to force a passion project. And I guess I've kind of tried that where I was like, okay, how are we gonna put it all together? And then often the problem is I couldn't with the math. I had to go back to myself. I don't know how to like tell a student what a passion project for math is. Like that's the point of passion, maybe.
Mhm.
And this isn't me falling into like the trap of like you have to be authentic and if you don't care. No, I don't fall for that. Like of course you can do stuff for college. That's totally fine. It's more
Right.
practical that a lot of this stuff is a lot of work and it is very difficult and it does require a bit of creativity and excellence and will to do something different that I or other college consultants are probably actually going to struggle with. Like I would be curious what other people like. Okay, I hire all these passion project experts. Like, what do they have you do? Because I've personally struggled with it. I have no idea how to make a high level mathematician showcase what they have to do something special. I could probably do it with a writer, but even then, it would just be similar to my path. And Yeah, I keep talking in circles because it's mostly just that you should just yes, but the idea is sound is that like yeah, you the reason they work and why they're effective is that you're trying to stand out in the college admissions process and you've already made yourself spiky. Like even if you're a mathematician, you get pretty far just being really good at math. However, unless you're the best at math, like you're really at the top level, there's going to be a large group of people who are very passionate about math and are displaying it. A passion project is a way to instead incorporate your other interests or other special things about you, or showcase like what you really have in a way that no one else has done. That is what I kind of see them as, is like why they're interesting and exciting. Is that it's something that I've never seen before.
Hmm,
Like
okay.
that is cool, but that is something again that I'm not sure how someone coaches you into because no one was going to coach me into unless I brought it up. But like then they could tell me, yeah, go do that. Yeah, that's I guess the question I would have is like, okay, all you passion project TikTokers, like, what does that even mean? Because I guess that's why keep stumbling. I don't know how to do a passion project with a student, and like usually I don't have to. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like about this whole industry that's kind of like come up because of these passion projects. I mean, there's like one guy, his name is Christopher Rim and charges like 120,000 for college consulting, but included in that is like crafting these passion projects. And then I guess he uses the passion project as kind of the hook then that their essays and their extracurriculars kind of revolve around. So I guess, yeah, what do you think about students exploring like this passion project industry? Should they
Yeah, I'm
get
mostly
help
just
or
this falls back into I'm saying like this is the hat. The hat's coming back. Hold on.
uh-oh.
I was specifically told to use the hat. Here's what you get. Oh, it's a hat time. This is what you get when you pay Christopher Rim $120,000 for 4 years of college consulting advice. Okay, this is what you get, and this is why I know this because I don't offer this, and people don't really want what I have to offer in comparison. That's why I do the essay stuff, which I'm much better at. So what you get, you show up as a ninth grader or an eighth grader or a 10th grader
Mhm.
or what have you. They either tell you to either they ask you which major you want, or they tell you which major you're going to take. If it's a place like Solomon, again, the hat's on. This is all fake. I cannot confirm any of this. They pick a major for you. They'll be easier to get into.
Ah, okay.
What you're really paying for at that point is they have connections, I suppose. That these are connection making companies.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, they have like SAT tutors and stuff. What you're really paying for is that these large companies and a fair amount of the money that you are paying them goes into they know a guy in every lab. They know a guy who works at every like physics lab in the country. They know people who work at liberal arts, historical museums,
Okay.
math, basically people who are willing to accept money on the down low in order to take on a bunch of high schoolers to as basically interns in a way
Mhm.
that they really almost certainly have no actual interest in, but they for whatever reason are willing to essentially take back like I don't know if it's taxed or not, but basically accept payment from these giant firms in order to take on these students. That is how they're able, and what they do is they basically put you in a major box and they have the sources that you need, resources that will get you to like a strong application. My take when I was starting this is I was going to partner with zoos, and like if I built a college consulting firm, this isn't a hat. This is what I would do. I would have it would all be all about animals. This is a old school take. Like, I gotta drop this one, and I'd have the student show up, and I'd ask them like, all right, you need to pick a major and you pick an animal, and they go, Okay," and they'd be like, computer
What?
science and penguins. They go, awesome. You are now about to use computer science to save the penguins. And basically, I would have partnerships with every zoo and every zoo. It's true. Every zoo and adoption animal adoption service and like dog training. I would I would pay those people instead to then take my students in and they would use their computer science to like improves the website of this adoption service or whatever the hell they would do. And that's
Right.
kind of thing because these other companies, again, hats coming back on, are basically on the take. They're would be flexible with like whatever this kid's specialty is. Like they'll try to help him with it because again, like this is all just money moving hand.
Mhm.
That is how I believe a lot of high level applications are made. Like that's what you get for your $120,000 for like 4 years, and like there's a lot of value in that, and I totally get that. I suspect that at least some of our students that we've come have worked with those consulting groups.
Ah,
It's
okay.
real don't ask, don't tell. Not very many, but I believe it has happened. And that, but then the problem with those is they don't spend any money on the writer. Like that's where we come in. Like I think there's definitely students
Gotcha.
who work with them and then realize that the actual essay editors at those places are crap because it's the last quarter of like what you're paying for, and like they cheap out on that and they don't think they need it. But that
Interesting.
hats
Yes,
on.
yes.
I was told to use the hat. But that is basically the premise. However, Christopher Rim is not the guy on TikTok who's like some Harvard sophomore who is telling you all about a passion project. Like, and I could
Yeah.
totally see that through that process. Well, if you are heavily controlling like what path they take through to get this like basically like check marked box, well then it's
Mhm.
gonna be a lot easier to also know how a passion project stems from that with a little bit of creativity because you
Okay.
have the same building blocks leading towards it. And the reality is I'm not that guy. Like I don't have those connections. And I know I don't, and because whenever I work with students who are younger in the process, they're excited to meet me and there's ideas, but it always leads to the part where I'm like, okay, so you need to go get better at math, and they ask how, and I don't
Mm.
have a very quick and easy solution for them. Unlike when they're like, how do I apply to the UCs? I go, oh hell yeah, I'll be here every week, kind of thing. Like I do believe that is what I am lacking, and why they're like, okay, and they go, and then they go ask someone else who has those kind of. That's what people want. This is hard.
Right.
Best way I could say is that, yeah, maybe that's why the whole passion project part kind of falters for me because it's rare that really I have a student coming back like every X weeks for like the whole system. Usually they'll come in occasionally for
Mhm.
ideas, but like you need to have that kind of control in order to help them build it and really know the student. So I can get how this would all build to crescendo, and I bet I wouldn't shock me that if you go to like these Christopher Rim, Solomon type places, your passion project is gonna be pretty gosh darn similar to other students' passion projects that have also worked with them. The good news is,
Yes.
the good news is you can change a few different flavors of things, and there aren't that many students who all have the exact same thing, and you get away with it. Like that is basically how I think this actually goes down when
Yeah.
done correctly. And I'm not saying that this is that this, I'm saying I get why that would work, but that's different than hiring someone off TikTok who's like, "I know how to make a passion project," because for the same reason
Yeah.
I don't really know how to. I'm not sure what their magical formula is because I just don't think they have the pieces together.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you, you know, using someone in the industry, and now you've got, like, this polished, like, parent-funded project. I mean, can colleges, like, see through that? Do they think it's, like,
Well, they
not
say that about
authentic or
they say that about the essays too, Michelle,
Yeah.
like, and, quite honestly, the gross version, and I think that the ones I notice is it's, nonprofits, but
Mm.
particularly nonprofits where it sure seems like the parents basically set this whole thing up, and, like, that stuff kinda bleeds through. But in general, no, I don't think they can tell for the same reason they obviously can't and don't tell when the essays are a little too nice and polished because professional writers have been working with the students. They don't seem either the line is like either they don't notice or they do but don't care, is what I say about how the essays work out.
Right.
When it comes to the extracurricular stuff, I know they don't because I can't tell. I just mentioned
Mm.
and for the same reason, like I don't spend too much time and energy really looking into the details or asking like how this get done. Did you pay anyone? When a student brings me a long, endless list of extracurriculars, some I like more than others. I look at it and identify the ones I think will be most helpful, and we get writing about them. And then it's our job to kind of like figure out like the why behind it. And the students usually have the good why.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's another. Like, I'm selling myself on passion projects. Like I'm just like I don't know. Yes, it still goes back to the line between, but the same person that works with a high level consulting agency, they don't just have a passion project. They have a well built kind of like checklisted, like regimented application that has all the different pieces I like to look for, and then if done correctly, like what I really see, I don't call it a passion project. I call it a crown jewel, and it's kind of
Hmm.
different. Is
Interesting, yeah.
the students who I tend to see as like the tippy top level, your Harvard, Stanford, Yales. There's two differences I notice in their application.
Mhm.
The first is that their resume just never ends. It's just like scroll, 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 scroll,
That's
scroll, scroll,
true.
scroll, 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 and it's just like and they can talk about any of it, but it's like it's the girth of it. But then what I really note is there's usually one or two things, usually just one that I ask about that pops out. I remember there was something it's impressive more than anything like that, and maybe it's not that it's like it can be kind of usually it's very impressive. So they got a internship at a government facility that is like you don't usually get, or they won some competition I've really heard of, and like I've never seen someone who won that before.
Okay.
There is just something that pops about their application. I ask about it and I go, holy shit, like that is raw, that is different. And
Right.
then but that's not a passion project necessarily. Like that's usually it's closer to an award or an honor. That is what I really notice. Yeah, that I'm thinking of one girl in particular. That girl then also has something that was very obviously a passion project in which she like transcribed like war veteran stuff, and like I even joked with her time.
Oh.
I was like, so this was the passion project era, and she was like, yeah. Well, that stuff is neat, and we often there's some good stories that can come from it, some good essay content. But that's not why that girl got into Harvard. Like I don't know, it was that she worked at the Capitol.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, I like yeah, like that same girl without her passion project still gets into Harvard. I believe with
Okay.
97% confidence because we find a different essay to write a fun but emotional story about for her Yale supplement or whatever or Harvard like
Yeah.
because that was the real value of it. It was just a nice topic to write about.
Does every student need to have a passion project? Because now it just feels like it's something that has to be on your application.
The whole passion project concept really only applies and it really matters for your like top 20 school applications. I
Oh,
feel
okay.
very strongly that a passion project at best is like kind of neat. It will make the essays a little bit easier to write if you are applying to schools below, say like the top 20, top 25. At that
Mhm.
point, your grades and SATs are infinitely more important. What happens though as we enter this top 20 range is that the average SAT, ACT basically becomes perfect. And that's why there's so much chaos at the top level. So do
Okay.
not do a passion project instead of getting A's or a better SAT, ACT score. Like that is probably
Gotcha.
like spend your summer on that or your time on that because those matter. But assuming you have your SAT score and your grades, what was the original question about? It was like what does it apply to? Yes, I because there's so much competition at the top level, I every little piece does help. I guess as
Okay.
I'm talking myself through it, it is not that like a passion project is some like grand, unbelievable hack that people want to think it is.
Yeah.
It is another piece in a high level application that absolutely can and will provide value given it is a cool project that goes well. Like quite honestly, the passion project, the value of it is how successful it is. The most successful, I'm thinking about passion projects that worked, and almost all of them were they made X amount of money, or someone very important actually came and watched. You know, like it's about objective, and at that point, it's any other extracurriculars. And I think soon enough,
Yeah.
we're going to be doing an episode probably together on your extracurricular sheet and like what and like basically how I taught you how to do it, and then you
Yeah.
kinda figured out kinda ignored like, picked up whatever you would from it and then actually did it right because it's better than mine, so whatever. Yeah, like, it's just another like, when it actually comes to apply, it is just another thing you did, and
Okay.
in that way, there's a lot of variance in how valuable that will be. So, if it is themed correctly, it is good. If it is generally impressive, it is good. If it is neat and you are able to write a powerful essay about it, that's good, but those are only true if they're true. So,
Mhm.
like, it being a passion project does not matter when you apply. Like, that does not modify it because you don't, like, write that down. It's just another thing you did. So, like, that's why it's hard for me to do either to talk about it outside of, like, "Yeah, cool, go for it." Like, I don't know, but also it's just another piece. Just another piece of that can and will matter depending on what that piece actually looks like.
And like you said, by the time students come to you, they've kind of already they would already have a passion project. But if students are thinking about like, oh, I need to have something like this, when should they start thinking about this?
Well, generally, it's going to be a couple years into in your high school, excuse me, if only because you need your first couple years to establish what you're actually passionate about.
Oh, true.
Done perfectly. The idea of a passion project is as a 14-year-old, you decide what you want to do with your life, and academically, you get into it. You go on wacky adventures. You learn more than the average high school student and then because you are so passionate about a certain aspect of it, you are implored to build something or do something really impressive or unique that celebrates that passion. Which even just explaining it that way sounds cynical, I guess. That's
Yeah.
not that's not really how high school is supposed to work. But this process is kind of insane. I want to say that time it only really makes sense if you are given a couple years to address that passion, which usually,
Yeah.
honestly, I think the ideal or the most logical timeline is probably starting around now. It's late into your junior year, the summer between, and then probably the beginning of your senior year. Like that's kind of like the probably the most logical timetable
Okay.
to get it all done because well, that's the last chunk of time you have before you then apply. Like do not do your passion project in spring of senior year. It's too late.
Good point.
Unless it really is about the passion, I guess, but it's not. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Maybe the name is the name itself is silly because like it's so that's not how passions work, man. Like I built a couple.
Right.
Yeah,
Just because you
like,
put the name on it doesn't
I
mean
know.
that the
Like,
passion shows through.
I'm a passionate guy. It's like I've never done a passion project in quite the same way. But yeah, so that timeline makes sense to me. I will also note though, if your passion project is done when you're a sophomore or a freshman, that's fine. One of my
Mhm.
thoughts on college admissions is I believe schools are surprisingly agnostic to when you complete any different piece of work. So
Okay.
any class you take or extracurricular you do or passion project you complete, when you actually complete it, I think it's somewhere between they don't care or don't really notice where it takes place on the timetable.
Got it.
So if you do it between your freshman and sophomore year, don't I wouldn't worry about them being like, but I haven't established my passion. Like they don't care. It just like they want to know about the actual thing because when they're
Yeah.
reading it again, They are not reading it through the lens of like, oh yes, this was the passion project. This
Right,
was the,
right. I was looking for that.
yeah, yeah. They are instead going kind of like I look at it. Like the way I look at a resume, be like, oh, that's cool. They ran like a thing at their high
Mhm.
school about like animal preservation. Okay, neat.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, mostly they don't notice. They don't be like, oh wait, this was in 2022, but that's before they took the like like that
Right,
that kind of
right.
timeline
Yeah.
stuff is they don't have the time. Yeah, but they just want to see like what they're much more curious to be like, oh, how many people were there? You're like, oh wow, a
Yeah.
senator, like that is the stuff that is going to pop much more than just simply the idea. I think of the other half of the project goes like, oh my god, they're spiky. They followed their passion into this
Yeah.
specific realm. And this goes back to our spiky well-rounded debate is that's not how they see the applications. They're not looking for like they're not looking for such a clean, obvious theme within it because that's not how people
Right.
read. Also, instead, it's more they look through like, oh yeah, this kid seems cool. Oh well, they like animals, they like biology. That's fun. They did do this big animal project, and now they want to study animal biology. Probably want to, and they want to use these. They want to use the services at our school that are about animal biology. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this kid could come. Like that is how it actually goes down when an essay works, and that essay is themed to hell and back. Like that is
Okay.
that is a well themed essay bio animal care themed application that I would be very proud of with
Gotcha.
students. But all like yeah, like all the crazy ideas about it, like that's not actually how these are read, and that's why you'll get admissions readers or these schools being like, "This is all nonsense," Like, what are you
Mhm.
like? Why? Like, I'm sure like an actual admissions officer would be like, it's these students like this is it's." Well, it is and it isn't because on one hand, you certainly understand how when you're reading it, that's not what you're thinking. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. Like what you are thinking is like, I like this kid, I want them in. So
Right.
it's hard to detach. I can't be the guy who's like this whole passion project thing is nonsense when I'm the same guy who's an insane person about all the essay stuff, and it's because I'm trying to manipulate these same people that also don't believe in passion
Yeah.
projects.
And what would you say, like, would pop on an application? Like, is there impact or, like,
Yeah,
metrics that
I think next week because when we're working is like it's time for the extracurricular slash honors section, and
Mhm.
I think I want to say I call it like the three I's, which was interesting. Oh my god! Next time on College with Mattie podcast, it was a three. It was interesting. Maybe they're D's. Do you remember? It was the three of the same letter. Basically, it was impressive. It was
Oh,
interesting,
okay.
impressive.
Impactful?
Yeah, probably impactful. Yeah, yeah. With extracurriculars in general, that is the three things you're looking for. Is in some order. Probably impressive is probably the most important. Then interesting and impactful are very close. But I'd say impressive is probably the best thing to pop out. And that's what I have you emphasize on when working with stuff is like, and that comes down to names, dates, places, like
Yes,
quantificate
documentation, yeah.
documentation and quantification. Like
Mhm.
that is a huge element of proper extracurriculars is how many people were there, like how much money did it make, much that is when it comes to the actual value of this or like any other passion project. That is it is just seen as an extracurricular, and that is what I believe these people are looking for as a way to quantify the work you have done. Then yeah, like if it works well, it also makes for a very nice supplement often.
Okay.
However, generally those supplements they could have been about something else, like that's the aspect I see of a passion project is it usually does become a supplement and it's usually pretty good. It's usually not like amazing, but generally if it really is a passion project and you really have to spend all this time and energy on it and generally you really should care to some extent about why you're doing it, that
Mhm.
is going to naturally lead to a an essay which you can talk about how that passion was explored. Like
Okay.
those are the real benefits of it. And then you get both sides of it. You get the, "Hey, by the way, this passion project was a lot of work and then, like, I crushed it," but also, like, the writer part, the nice sensitive
That's
aspect where
right.
we're like, the passion was here all along. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
cover it more better next there'll be a
Okay.
dedicated but, yeah, I wanna say there'll be a dedicated passion project section of the EC episode, but there won't be because it's not seen as a passion project when we're actually applying. It's just
That's
seen as a thing
true,
another
yeah.
it's right next to the lab you worked at for a summer, It's just
Right,
it's a
exactly. Does the passion project need to tie into a student's major, or can it just be something they're interested in?
I believe to maximize efficiency is an actual thing you're going to fall in, it's going to lead to my general belief of if you are doing a passion project, calling it a passion project and see it through those lens, then yeah,
Mhm.
pretty much because a passion project to me is itself somewhere between like a cynical, but or even probably better, just a strategic project you do in order to like put on your application. And in that scenario, you may as well be strategic about it. your passion is going to relate to your theme or your spike or what have you of the actual application. And done correctly, you can, in theory, you can really only do it about something like that because you have been building that theme or spike throughout high school. Maybe that's the
Okay.
point I'm coming to is if a student has no idea how to get into college and hasn't built anything, I don't know how effective a passion project will be
Got it.
because you need to have a passion. You need to have a passion first. Like
Right, right.
the successful ones are either thought out by the student or built by high paid consulting labs, like to build this kind of for it to make sense because then the idea is you've established an understanding or a passion for whatever it may be. It's
Yeah.
usually going to be academic, and then that you build upon that or use that information to go do something new and exciting. Without that foundation, if you're just drifting through high school, I don't know like genuinely how well, you can go ahead and try and make anything you want at a varying level of success, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure how you sell it as a passion project or as a celebration or a completion of like a train of interest because you don't have anything leading up to it. It's just a weird big thing you did. You know, if you run this whole on the actual application, if you just put on a giant show for like animal conservation in your high school,
Yes.
but you haven't done any other animal conservation or yeah, it doesn't have to be academic necessarily, but that same student I would be getting the bio stuff in. You know, it's like
Right.
you don't have any hard bio, animal bio, I guess, or animal preservation stuff. It's a very strange extracurricular to put in your application at the end of the day. If you're then applying
That's
history,
true. Yeah, that's true.
if you're applying history, and you have those but like, how the hell does this even show up? Like, you'll put it there, but like, that's not gonna get you into school for history. They're like, oh, you also like animals, apparently. That's the thing
Yeah.
is this is a large kind of a chunk or a large kind of crown air. I don't call it crown jewel because I said that was different, but this is like a main event kind of item that is really only makes sense in an entire application that has been strategically put together correctly.
Okay. So, like, okay, let's say you're interested in, like, baking. You wouldn't just do a passion project about baking. You would maybe tie it and let's say your major's biology. So maybe you would tie baking and biology together into a
If you're working
project or
with me,
something?
that's if you're working with me, you
Yeah,
are. Yeah. Maybe that's the key, yes, is in any scenario in which a student I'm working with a student to build a passion project, they have already been on board, for a while, and I've helped them been helping the last couple of years, which totally has happened.
Mhm.
The one big passion project I had was when I briefly was really doing, like, contract deals for high school stuff. I now do it, like, very
Okay.
piecemeal, and there was one student I stuck around with because I realized contracts were all terrible, and I got out of all of them except for one girl I really liked. That's another story. And yeah, her passion project was she was doing psych. She wanted to considering like a career in therapy, and I got her working at a crisis teen hotline type situation, like in a state that allows minors to do so. And she worked
Okay.
there for like a year, and and it was neat because like it made sense, and then we totally used that in the application. And you're right, like having actually gotten one to completion, it is effective because it's cool and it makes the application. You know what you're doing in the application. It's like it really has put
Yeah.
it all together and then the results were good. So it totally can work like that, but that is different than me just getting a student and having her go do that. Like it was also a ton of work, and like again, that's what you get when you hire people. To like they have those connections, and that was kind of my understanding. Is like I had to work my ass off to figure out this whole thing,
Mhm.
and quite honestly, if I were to do it again, I would send another site kid to that exact same place. Like that's probably how these places actually build. Is that they just like
Ah,
I built a
okay.
system to do the essay work. They have built a series of connections, some paid, some not. You know, like they have built a series of web connections for different majors. And like
That makes
the
sense.
reality is, I'm not the passion project guy. Like, do not come to college with Mattie for a passion project idea. I'm sorry. If you want to put this on TikTok, it'll be really funny. But like, that is my overall. The fact that I totally did do it to completion, I understand why it could be effective. However, yeah. Next question. I'm tired of passion projects. They're so annoying. People
I
like
know. Well,
everyone's.
that was actually my last question for you. So, but I still feel like I learned a lot about passion projects from you
I did
today.
too, talking myself through it because I don't think about it that often. It's really like I think about it when there's a new TikToker who has one. We hired Harvard graduates. Like, yeah, like okay, you hired a bunch of 22-year-olds. Like, yeah. At some point, we'll talk about in college consultants and their overall views. But
Oh, yes, can't wait. I guess okay, so if a student is thinking about doing a passion project, I mean, where should they start? Even though I
depends
know you
how
say you're not like the expert, but
it depends where they are in the timeline. I think if they are a eighth grader, freshman, sophomore, they should. The first step is to have a passion in the first place, and that was what I was saying.
okay.
That is
That's a good
general
point.
advice I would find. If you're a ninth grader or 10th grader, you should have a pretty clear understanding of what major you want to be doing in college, and That is what I am actually prepping ninth and 10th grade for. Even that seems a little early. That is the first step, is figure out what major you want to do in college. Then you need to, like, you should already be on an active program building extracurriculars related to that major that are increasingly becoming more, I guess, interesting. What are the three? More interesting, impactful,
Impressive.
and impressive. Yes, like those are the three I's you want to be building towards in any particular order. At some point, I would say somewhere in your junior year, the summer, like probably the right around, yeah, either your second semester junior year, the summer in between, and or like your fall of senior year, that is
Mhm.
probably like passion project land. Is makes the most sense for me. That means you could probably be preparing for it in like fall of your junior year, or even the summer before, like even getting ready for it. That basically the goal is to take what, like it should be centered around the major you want to do, but it should be taking the information you have learned from your different experiences and finding a creative and unique way to apply them in a way that will provide real impact to the world, will
Mhm.
be impressive in a way that will pop a little bit, and what's the third one? One last time, one last time, one last time, and
Im
interesting.
eh
And yeah, it will be interesting. Will be something that no one else or very few other students would do. And I gave the example of the mental health, like
Yes.
work. That's again, I dare other colleges like go on TikTok and be like passion project ideas. It's but that's the basic premise, and it should be something you make, like or I guess with the girl, she wasn't really making anything, but you could see how like it's going to require additional effort for you to either build something or to find people that are not going to come to you. Like
Right.
that is probably the key to it, and that's why you need to put that time and energy in to figure it out. And yeah, then go do your very best effort on it with the understanding that done correctly, this should merely be like a good like final or near final chapter of what your actual application looks like. And maybe that's the biggest help is done correctly. This should very well inform what your actual essay should be on, how you should be formatting everything. It is not that you just present this as in the actual application, you just present this as like a cool thing you did. Like it is a culmination of your overall application strategy of like this is what I'm interested, this is what I want to do, and here's how it kind of culminated for me. That I think, as much as anything, will be like the most beneficial aspect of the passion project, which is different than you need a passion project or you won't get into Harvard. It's not
Right.
nearly as cut and dry as that.
Well, that was super helpful. See you next time.
Thank you, Michelle. See you next time. I am now taking on students for the 2025-26 college admission season. If you are a current junior who's looking for help specifically with their college application and essays, you should check out my website. It's collegewithmattie.com. And there you can see my services, my blog with other written posts, as well as book out a free consultation where you get a chance to chat with me and see how I might be able to help. Looking forward to meeting with you.